Pack up your bags. We're moving to authenticity. Today's episode is all about, the dad jokes are never going to be good. But today it's all about moving into a state where you are authentic to yourself. And I just love the play on words of authentic city is also authenticity. So, Kat, we work on this a lot with our clients in coaching.
We do.
And it's the first thing we talk about. I know you just finished an interview on another podcast too, talking about this. So you're coming in hot with this, which is really good.
Yeah. Actually, I think I did 2 interviews this week on authenticity. Wow. Oh, and by the way, I think we need to give proper credit to authenticity from our friend Lisa Peterson, because I think we got that from her.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if she was like scarcity or authenticity.
Scarcity.
And I'm like,
oh, yeah.
So
well, we love Lisa, and we recommend her all the same.
Yeah, she's amazing. So yeah, here we are. Being authentic is incredibly hard when you lived your life for everybody else. And I know I was doing that. I know a lot of people do. I think every one of the clients that we have is like, they're just lacking that true self, that who they really are. So I think, what would you say is like the first step you need to do when you're trying to move to authenticity? What's the first thing you pack? I'm going to drop this joke at some point, I promise.
Okay. Well, hopefully it's now.
Done.
I'm just teasing. I kind of like it. I think that, well, really we need to know the why, right?
Right.
Back to work, Andrew. All right. First, you need to know your why. And why is authenticity important? Why are we even doing this episode? And it's because we believe that the path to true happiness is being authentic to who you truly are. There are thousands of books about happiness. Everyone's always searching for this elusive happiness. How do I be happy? How do I become happier? And the truth is the more you honor yourself, your preferences, and do the things in this life that you actually want to do, that is the path to happiness. We've seen it with ourselves. We've seen it with the people that we help. And that is the why. And so with every person that we work with, so if you were one of our coaching clients, we would send you a set of questions. And one of the very first questions we ask is about your childhood. And Andrew, right. I'll ask, you can explain.
So what we found, and both from working with people and from ourselves, is that there were certain things when you're a kid that you just love to do. And it really is kind of pulling back the adult layers that we've put on ourselves and going, what is that thing that really lights you up? What was the thing that, you could do for hours as a kid and not be bothered, like it was that thing where when you got called in for supper or to go do homework or whatever else, you're like, oh, but I want to keep doing this thing I've been doing for hours and hours and hours. So this is something I did many years ago where I was my kids were starting school and, like I'll use air quotes here, but the full-time dad gig was shifting and I needed to have something that I wanted to do that was going to be enjoyable. And of course I went through all the, I could make more money. I could do this and that. But the things that really stuck out for me were I really liked writing. I loved writing. I loved getting to know people and I loved learning. And I also loved figuring out problems. So these were kind of all things that as a kid, I would solve puzzles. I would, like physical puzzles. I would love talking to kids and listening to everything they had to say. I loved learning about people. I loved learning in general. I loved writing because that was just something that came a little bit later on. And any kind of like figuring out to help people was just that thing. So when I took those things that I liked, then I started to look for activities that I could do these things in, not necessarily all at once, but I found that for, creating a blog and writing about money and helping people in ways like that. And that has, morphed and changed over the years into where we are now, which is something where we really get our coaching clients a big hand in going and helping them find their true purpose. And it all starts with asking yourself, like, what do you really like? Because I think a lot of
Mm,
us at this age, um, we kind of we forget. We get caught
yeah.
up in the day to day and the week to week, and then suddenly we're older and we're like, I used to love playing guitar, and and it's
Mm,
been sitting in my living room for 12 years as the nicest decoration I have, but I haven't
ah,
touched it.
yeah.
It's so when we're working with people, that is kind of the first thing, is to just look at it and go, okay, what
And it
lights you
might
up?
not, yeah, and it might not be like as direct as, oh, I played guitar as a kid and I like playing a guitar now. You have to just kind of think back to your tendencies, your preferences, like what did people say about you? And one of my favorite stories of this is Marie Kondo, who wrote the, international bestseller, right? The Magic of Tidying Up. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I feel like that's not exactly the right title, but y'all know who I mean. Um, she said that when all the kids went to recess, she would stay in the classroom with her teacher and she would like organize everybody's cubbies and she would want to like sweep the floors. And that was her natural inclination as a child, as young as like first grade.
Wow.
And of course, now she has a best selling book about, tidying up, organizing.
Yeah.
And, you might have been the person growing up that people came to for advice, that people trusted. You might have just had that, like, you're always a helper, right? And so maybe in your job now, you are not activating that helper within you. Maybe you're working on spreadsheets instead, and maybe you would be better as a therapist, coach, whatever it is, teacher, whatever you want to say. Um, for me, obviously loved to read and loved to write, made a little family newspaper and distributed it, was like on my school newspaper. So that's always been a big part of me. But another big part of me is sort of being told my whole life, this is my sensitive kid. You're so sensitive. You're too sensitive. And it was always presented as like a negative, like I was just sort of hard to deal with because everything would move my emotions in one way or another. But now in the work that we do, now we're on a podcast, and because of those sensitivities, we're able to talk about really difficult things and have empathy for people. And so in order to find happiness, you have to find those things that are authentically you, things that are sort of baked into your being, who you've always been. Like Andrew said, maybe had to get swept aside and in the busyness of life.
Yeah, that's very well put, and it just gave me my glimmers for later on. But anyway, I really do think that when we're starting for this, the hardest part is acknowledging a preference.
Mm,
And I know that was my thing, was part of my evolution was that I needed to feel safe. So I gave my preferences away to everyone in this act of what I needed in those moments. And coming back to it, it was really hard. It was so
mm,
hard that when and you know this, but when I moved into my place here, I didn't even know what colors I liked. I didn't know what kind of couch I wanted or anything, and I got to discover it. And I
mm.
share that because in the moment, it felt very overwhelming. It was like, oh my
Yeah.
goodness, I need to figure all these things out. And I didn't. And that's when I took a couple months to get a couch. It was not very comfortable on card chairs, but that was just the process of like
Yeah.
getting to know the person behind the face. And you
Yeah.
look at yourself in the mirror every day, and so many of us don't know who we are because we've been putting on masks to help everybody else. And when you work with us, the thing you find is that you get to take those masks off. You get to
Yeah.
show up as your authentic self. And being authentic is also saying, I don't know who that is today, but I'm going to try, a little more salt on my food. Maybe I'm a person who likes salty instead of sweet. Maybe I've just been stomaching the sweet stuff because this is it. And it
Yeah.
sounds so silly to make it such a small thing, but the big things are made up of all the small little things. And that's where we work. That's what happens. You need to be able to just start with one thing at a time. Do you like the lights bright? Do you like them dim? Do you like waking up early? Do you like going to bed late? Which is it? There's
Yeah.
a million little preferences, and that's how you start to become authentic.
And I think that there are a lot of people listening who are in a partnership, relationship, marriage, where they are feeling unhappy. And it might be because they are allowing just one person to have their preferences realized. And in a healthy relationship, both people get to, have their preferences shown or take turns or compromise or whatever. Like, you can't, if you're trying to decide between Chinese food and Indian food, it's cool to like switch off, right? So each person kind of
Yep.
gets their preferences honored, but it should be a give and take, right? Because I just thought of this when you said like the lights dim the light. Now, well, what if their partner doesn't like the lights that way? And it's sort of like, finding times a day or finding, moments where each person can have their preferences recognized. But the core of this, and this is what I really want our listeners to hear, is you are worthy of all of your preferences and hopes and dreams and desires, whether they are as small as getting the kind of pizza you want, or as big as wanting to move to another country because it's just on your bucket list. You are worthy of all the dreams that you have, and you have those dreams and those ideas for a reason. And they've come to you for a reason, and they're a part of you. And if you're feeling unhappy and you're feeling stifled and you're feeling like there's something like bigger for you out there, it might be because you have all these little sparkly pieces of authenticity inside of you that are not being acknowledged. And I think you'll find, once you take the little sparkly bits one at a time and you start to kind of live your purpose, that you start to feel better.
I agree. Very, very well said, by the way. No surprise that you said it so well, but should always be acknowledged. I think if for the guys listening, you're hearing the sparkly stuff, I'm going to reframe it.
Sparkles too, Andrew.
Oh, I definitely
Everyone
do.
has a sparkle.
Everybody has their sparkle and their glimmers and their shines.
All right, for the dudes, what do they have? For the bros out there.
I really wish I could. This isn't me, but it sums it up, and I wish I could remember who it comes from. But I'm not great with quoting quotes. But if you're at a point in your life right now where you are feeling an emptiness inside and you're feeling that something's missing, it's very likely the thing that's missing is you in your own life. And that's authenticity screaming to come out. It's that child that's like, remember when we used to play? Remember when we used to have fun and we used to do things just because we could? And, remember how we used to love acting or hanging out with our friends, or just maybe, doing those things that we need now as adults, we deem frivolous, and it's really not. It's you. It's your authentic part that is just screaming to be acknowledged, so that you can start acknowledging it. And as you do that, as you start to, say, I like going for a bike ride after work every day, so I'm going to get a new bike and start biking. It's silly that I stopped doing that 20 years ago. As you start to do these little things for yourself, you start to tell yourself in a lot of ways that you are worthy, that your preferences have validity to them, that your life is better when you acknowledge your worthiness. All of these things, as they happen, will feel silly. And that's your ego coming in, trying to tell you like, well, of course we can do that. Yeah, of course you can. You always could, but you stopped. You gave up on the little part of you that, that had to be given up. And what you're doing now is you're going back to your authentic self. We all go on this journey of, we'll call it self-discovery, but you got to get lost first before you can go be found. And I think that's kind of what we see with so many people is, I started off really wanting to do this, and then I became this job, I became this profession, and I hate it. And I just want to get back to feeling good. And feeling good starts with acknowledging your preferences. And even if you don't get your preference, even if the light has to be on bright one at night in bed because the other person can't see properly, that is okay. It's just knowing that you have that preference at first. That is such a valid thing for you to get in touch with and go, look, I have merit and my preference is this. I accept that, having, that this might not be the most, the most conducive work environment. If I'm like singing from the top of my lungs the whole time when people are trying to do client calls, I accept that. We're not saying that it's going to be perfect. What we're saying is you start this move, you start this shift inside of you. And as you start to shift, as you start to check in with yourself and go, what is it in me that I want right now? Even if you don't get it, at least you're acknowledging that you have a preference.
What would you say to somebody, because there might be someone listening to this and, we both have heard this too, is that sounds like you're being selfish. It sounds like you're kind of being like, oh, it's all about me, selfish. And, for many people, selfish has a negative connotation. So what would you say to somebody who wants to discover their authentic self or rediscover it, but they feel like that's kind of like a selfish act?
It is. It's absolutely selfish, but you are a self and you are full of yourself. And if you're not full of yourself, you are not being yourself. And if you're not being yourself-ish, you can't be yourself. And without being yourself, who are you? You're pretending to be somebody else. It's not about being selfish. It's not about, it's not about broad strokes. And I think that's what our ego does. It's like, well, you can't just pack up and live in a van for the rest of your life as you travel to Antarctica. Maybe you can't. Maybe you can. It might be, it's always selfish, but that's not a bad thing. I come from this place where it was the same thing. I was exactly the same with this. I would look at it and go, well, I won't get this because I won't get ice cream because I want to be able to afford the ice cream for everybody else. And little child inside of me is going, but I really wanted an Oreo Blizzard and whatnot. Whereas now it's, I'm going to prioritize myself. I'm not in a place of greediness or being egotistical, but just acknowledging that if I don't put my mask on first, if I don't acknowledge myself, I die. I die from the inside out. And this is coming from somebody who was doing that. So this is coming all from a place of walk this very hard path. So when you're looking at it, sorry, go ahead, Kat, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Finish your thought.
So to answer yourself, it is selfish, but it's not the selfish that we brand everything in society as being negative. It is honoring yourself.
Yeah. And I think we've brought this up on the podcast many times before, but part of feeling good about yourself is doing the things you like to do and that you want to do, and knowing that your dreams matter and your preferences matter. And I know that we've said this many times, but every time you do something or you make a choice that's in line with your authentic self, you are sending a signal to your own brain that you matter. And when you feel like you matter, you show up better for everyone else in your life. And anyone out there who is a parent, like those first few years, you kind of lose yourself. You pour everything into like taking care of your child. My brother actually he and his wife just had their first baby, and my kids are 10. And so I'm just seeing all these pictures and I'm remembering like, oh my gosh, like it's just all consuming. He's perfect, by the way, of course. He's perfect, but all consuming. And, it takes a long time to get to the point where where I am now, where I can tell my 10-year-olds, look, I'm like at a 10 out of 10 on the noise level, on the sound. I have to go lie down for 30 minutes. Like I woke up too early. I want to be the best mom I can be. So I'm going to be true to myself and I'm going to take care of myself. My authentic self is saying, if you don't get some rest or some quiet time to like even out your nervous system, you will be a monster to everyone. And so it's better for them, for Andrew, for everyone if I get my rest. But that's also me telling myself it's something I wouldn't always do, is telling myself that my needs matter just as much, if not more, than my children's needs. Because if my needs aren't met and if I'm not okay, then how can I take care of them?
Right. That's really well put. Something kind of floated up as you were saying that. Um, I think a lot of us, like our authenticity, our selfishness, gets hammered down as we're younger, right? And I think everybody can say like, stop being so selfish, share the candy, do this, do that, and sharing is a good thing when it comes to all things, and
especially that stuff, candy.
Especially candy.
If you want to share it with me.
I will share my candy, but I'm going to go down a candy rabbit hole right now. So we're gonna jump over this and just keep going. But you and I have gotten really good at reframing past things as we discover stuff about ourselves and we grow. And the thing that kind of came to my mind was, like in school, if you were, the teacher might have told you to, don't be so selfish, or a parent may have said, don't be so selfish. Something you may want to consider is that in somebody asking you to not be so selfish, is their way of standing up for themselves, being authentic and being selfish themselves. They needed you to be quiet in class so that they could teach the rest of the class. That was them being selfish for a bigger cause. But again, it's just looking at it, trying to reframe it a little bit that, in telling you not to be selfish, that was probably somebody else also acknowledging their selfishness, whether they knew it or not in that moment. So that was just something that kind of popped into my brain. I wanted to share.
I like that. That makes sense. I mean, there is a lot of reframing that goes on. And, I think about like family and holidays and like, a lot of people feel pulled in like 100 different directions. And it's like their mom and all their aunties and their grandma, everybody wants to see the kids. And it's just like, it's such a stressful time for parents of young kids. And, part of that is like acknowledging like, they, want to honor their preferences of seeing the kids.
Yeah.
But if you have a preference for like waking up on Christmas morning with your own kids and making your own memories, like that's okay to honor your own preferences. Yeah. It's okay to not throw a big kid's birthday party because it's your preference to not spend $1,000 on a 5-year-old. It's okay if, you like certain things. I like wearing bright colors. I love going to thrift stores. I have had people tell me like, that's a weird thing to do. That's a very bright color for an adult woman to wear in an airplane. That's, thrift stores are gross or whatever. And so, at this point in my life, I have to just be like, okay, but it's my preference and it's what I like to do. There's literally nothing happier than me having like a book in my ears with a coffee, roaming a thrift store for an hour. That is like peak cat happiness right there. Like and so it's just kind of like also as part of this and as part of, we kind of give people homework and things to think about. Think about all your little quirks, maybe things that you've tamped down. Maybe you have like a funny laugh or a sneeze or something. And like, maybe
snort.
someone made or a laugh snort like Andrew over here. Maybe it's something that you've stopped doing because someone made a comment about it. Maybe just bringing it back as being authentically you. And every time you honor and love something about yourself, you're moving towards that authenticity. And, yeah. And I truly believe that the more you do that, the more it will become a habit and the quicker you will get to the happiness and contentment that you're seeking.
That is really well said. I think that's a really good place to stop.
Okay.
My final thought on it is that we often talk about how people are living life by accident, which is you patch together your life as you go along. I need this, I need to do that, whatever. I'm going to please this person, that person. What we do is we really strip down all those layers to get back to your soul's purpose, your happiness. And when you know that, when you start moving towards authenticity, you get to create that life of purpose. And when you start living your life with purpose, you stop living your life by accident. And that's really what we're doing for ourselves. And that's what we help people do. And being authentic is the first step. Even if you just acknowledge today that you would rather eat, stew with a fork rather than a spoon. I don't know. It's a terrible example.
You do you.
You do you. And if all you can come up is terrible examples on a podcast,
with
still
a
you.
fork. Okay.
Stew with a fork.
We accept you, Andrew.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that high note, let's move to our glimmers. Glimmers are the sparkly, happy, fun things in this life. We like to share one glimmer each on every episode just to kind of fill you in on the things that we're just loving lately. Andrew, you got a glimmer today?
Yeah, I am acknowledging my superpower. And I've never looked at it like that. I've always looked at this as such a detriment to my life. And it is my sensitivity. It is my superpower. It is my ability to sense things in other people, in myself. And it also helps me help people and help them heal in so many ways and to find their purpose. So that is my
it's making you glimmery.
Glimmer. Yeah.
Oh, it's so nice. You? I was just going to say that we started playing Words with Friends.
That's right. I really like that.
I know. It's like Words with Friends was really popular a few years ago, and I used to play it a bunch. Warning, it's full of ads and kind of like a little junky now, but it was sort of like a fun thing to do. And Andrew beat me on our first game, but there's time.
Super close score, like within a couple of points.
That's all right.
It's a lot of fun. And I think, again, one of our authentic steps is just allowing ourselves to have fun again. And not everything has to be work with a purpose. Yeah. So it's nice.
Yeah, I find that Andrew and I are extraordinarily similar. And so we tend to be sort of serious, introspective, lots of reading, lots of, deep thoughts and conversation. And we love that about ourselves. And that is our authentic. We are extraordinarily similar. So for us, it might not sound like a big deal to other people, but for us, like actually playing a game on a phone is like a big departure from like our normal conversation and stuff we do. So that was glimmery and fun for me. So I wanted to mention it.
I liked it. I also liked how, like, for the first half of the game, we're like, this is okay, right? This is okay that we're doing this. Yes, it's okay.
We're allowed to play something. Okay. It's fine.
Yeah.
This is not a waste of time because it's words, right? It's cool.
That's right. Yeah. It's all good.
Take advice from us, everyone.
On that note, everybody, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Oh, and don't forget, if you want to get that advice from your future self, head on over to 5yearyou.com/future to get signed up.
Just a reminder, we're two people on the internet. We're not doctors or anything else, but we do want to help. If you feel that you need professional medical care, please see a licensed medical practitioner.